Good morning, Mr. Astrup. Could you please introduce yourself, the team and the research?
Hi, my name is Arne Astrup. I'm a professor and head of Department of Nutrition, Exercise and Sports here at the University of Copenhagen. I've been working in this study with some scientific collaborators from Wageningen University in the Netherlands and also from University of Reading in United Kingdom. The background for this study was really that there's so much information out in the public domain, for example on websites and alternative therapists talking about that maybe some people are intolerant to dairy products and milk, and also that milk isn't really so good for your health, or is it maybe bad for your health. And more people actually choose to have some alternative to dairy products. For example, milk from oat or almond, etc., which is not really milk, but is some, in my view, some more artificial products. So this group of scientists, we decided to do some study to find out.
What are your main conclusions and recommendations?
So the research group, we decided to look at all kinds of scientific results, publication studies, whether it was population studies or randomized controlled trials on using dairy versus no or little dairy, really to find out what are the health effects of consuming milk and dairy. And we actually found very robust evidence that people who have a lot of dairy, whether it's milk, yogurts or cheese, cream, butter, those who had a high consumption of these dairy products compared to those who had almost none or none consumption of these products, that the high consumers had a much better health. And if we look at different kind of health that is interesting, where you look typically at the risk of getting a disease, that, for example, the risk of gaining weight, becoming overweight and obese is much less if you have a high consumption of dairy products. And if you look at the risk of getting type 2 diabetes, it's also lower for those who have a high intake of dairy. For cardiovascular disease, it's a little surprising that actually a high consumption of dairy reduces the risk of high blood pressure, and therefore also there's a lower risk of getting a stroke. And overall there's no effect on cardiovascular mortality. It means the risk of dropping dead, whether you have a high consumption or low consumption of dairy. And that's even if you have a high consumption of saturated fat from dairy, which now we have discovered does not have any adverse health effects. Of course, there are many other diseases of interest, for example, cancer. And it is quite obvious from our research that a high intake of dairy is not increasing the risk of any cancers. It's actually doing the opposite. So a high intake of dairy will reduce the risk of particular colorectal cancer, which is quite a serious and very prevalent cancer among both gender, but particularly the most prevalent among non-smoking males. Very serious disease where it's actually the risk is reduced with a high intake of dairy, but also the risk of gastric cancer and the risk of bladder cancer, the risk of breast cancer are all reduced among those who have a high intake of dairy products as compared to those who have a very low intake of dairy. There are many other conditions where you could say generally dairy is associated actually with a reduced risk of getting all these different diseases.
What's your opinion, based on the research evidence, on the trend of alternative products and plant-based drinks?
Well, the plant-based drinks as alternatives to dairy has become very popular, and they are among a lot of people really recognized as being something that is much more natural, much more healthy, because they are plant-based. But in reality, we don't know that much really about their health effects. And if you take, for example, oat drink or oat milk, it's actually oat. You put boiled water on it, then you press the water out of it, and because it's a thin fluid without any good taste or flavor or anything, you start to add your various salts, chemicals into it and enrich it with vitamins and minerals, and then you add flavor, etc. So in reality, it's really you can say a raw industrial produced product. It's not that natural at all. But anyway, if people like it, it's fine. But we don't know anything about the health effects because it's not really been studied. There's almost no scientific studies that have tested these plant-based drinks versus or against milk. So we know almost nothing about their health effects. So therefore, I would generally recommend people that good organic milk and dairy products are actually very natural and are also associated, their consumption are really associated with a better health. But on top of that, I think it's also a very important part of our food culture. Personally, I think it would be a major problem to have a diet without any cheese, without any yogurt and yogurt type products. So it's not only the health effects, it's also quality of life and food culture.
What's the reason behind skepticism about milk and dairy products in general, despite all the scientific evidence?
Well, it's a good question now when we have so much scientific evidence to show that dairy is associated with a better health. So why are there still a lot of information out there on websites and alternative medicine advice where people are told that there are adverse effects of dairy and they should do something else, consume something different, just like plant-based drinks? Well, I don't know, but it's always in this post-factual episode of the society where we see that more and more false information is spreading out, particularly on the web. And I don't know what to do about it, but I think it's up to people self to make their own choices. And if you ask the scientists who are working in the field of dairy and health, there's no doubt about the conclusion. A consumption of dairy products is clearly associated with a better quality of life and more rich food culture, better coverage of all nutrients, but also a better health and reduced risk of diseases. So that is quite clear. Thank you for your attention.